Welcome to Pop.0 with Bryan Chaffin and John Kheit.
Oh, I love that sexy voice. She sounds so exotic. Today is Wednesday. No, what is it? It's Thursday, December 28th. It's Thursday today, December 28th, 2017. And this is a video podcast for the Mac Observer. I'm Bryan Chaffin, editor-in-chief for TMO.
And I'm John Kheit, and I'm here happy to talk to Bryan.
Oh, I'm here happy to talk to you too, Johnny boy. What are you going to say that's going to piss me off today?
Exactly. I'll leave those happy feelings for a minute. Today, as always, we have 3 topics and we're lying. And the topics are 1, Throttlegate, 2, encouraging Mac signs. For some reason, that almost sounds like a David Letterman fun
kind of, yeah.
pet tricks kind of thing. Encouraging Mac signs. And 3, HomePod and the holidays.
HomePod and the holidays. No pop today? We're not doing any pop, are we?
Yeah, kind of all the shows have gone on hiatus, but maybe we'll sneak in a topic there because I actually was curious about whether you're enjoying. Actually, we might as well start with the pop right off the.
Okay, well, it's the pop.
Have you? I know that you watched part of the first episode of Orville, and you mentioned, I think it was on Context Machine with Jeff. He brought up a good analogy of like tyranny of the mass likes episode of Orville.
Yeah.
Have you started watching Orville at all, or are you still?
I still haven't gotten to it because I want to pay attention to it. It's so ridiculous. I want to watch that show. Clearly, I need to now because it has some new and added relevance.
So to let you watch the show.
Yeah, no spoilers, please.
No spoilers. The first 3 to 4 episodes, it's a bit rough. Although the opening scene that you actually saw, I think, is funny, but it gets a little roughy.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then somewhere episode 4, 5, 6, it totally I think
most shows take until season 2 or 3 to really get a groove. So
I give them credit.
Yeah, that's great.
I'm
looking forward to it. Is that all you were going to say?
Yeah, I was just curious if you started to give it a chance. And have you checked out the real Star Trek on the ransomware CBS app?
Ransomware. No, I am going to. I resent this particular bit of silification, especially the idea that I'm going to be paying, a subscription price for one show. I don't want to reward CBS for that, so I'm going to wait, but I won't pirate it either. My belief is that if I don't like the price of content, that my right is to eschew the content, not to steal it.
So this is a great topic actually for pop in a number of ways. So 1, I think the price that it's actually at is a great and fair price. Hear me out before you hate on me. You can, for 1 month, and by the way, I try to sign up for all subscriptions via iTunes, because the one thing that iTunes does good, once you find the hidden passage to this feature, is turning on subscriptions on and off is 1 click.
Well, and if you're paying through them for paying for them through iTunes, and you can buy a discounted iTunes card, you're getting your subscriptions at a discount.
Right. Which is the going rate if you get good discounts is about 15%. So you're right on point. So it's already 15% cheaper, which I do. So you just buy it for 1 month, which is, I don't know, it's like $11 or whatever, commercial free, and you get to stream it for $11. The whole you're going to watch it inside of a month, the whole season, because it's only like, I don't know, 10 episodes or something like that. And you unsubscribe after the month, and you paid whatever, $11 for 10 episodes is a very actual.
Yeah, and that's how I'm going to do it.
Well, you could do that today if you want. I mean, there's nothing.
Is the series done?
Yes. Yeah, the first. Yeah, the first season is done. It's like 10 episodes.
Okay, well, I might watch it over this holiday weekend then.
You should. It's people have given it crap. Not only are the production values on every episode basically at near or at full-on feature movie standards, the scripts and writing has been really great. I I went into the show, and I bet you if you started watching the show with me, you would have probably bet I would have hated it. And frankly, I would have bet I would have hated it. I ended up.
Hold on. At any given moment, if we're talking about a new thing, it is a safe bet that you're going to hate it.
That's not true.
Actually, yeah, that is truth.
That might be true. What about a Mac Pro? If it's a new Mac Pro, but you're like, if it's new, you'll hate it. Which it might be true. But an iterated Mac Pro, I would like.
Maybe. I said at any given time, it's like if I've got to take the over under blindly, I'm going to take the over, and I'm going to be given enough bets, I will be a massive winner.
So one, you should thank me for this.
Okay.
What I'm going to say next.
Okay.
Do you know why you should thank me for this?
I don't know what you're going to say.
You should thank me, one, in general, just for being the wonderful me.
Sure, of course.
Even I can't keep a straight face for that bullshit line. But two, because it makes your grumpy pants levels seem like a nothing relatively. You should be thrilled to have me around because, by the way, I listened to TADO, and which was great. It was a really good.
Talking about TMO's daily observations.
Correct. And you're actually, I really like your last Context Machine with Jeff. Both of you were great.
Thank you.
Dude, you've become like, not to near the extent, but me, a grumpy pants.
Yeah, you essentially.
I'm a bad influence.
You're not giving me license, but you provide for licensing opportunities for me to be more of a curmudgeon without being anywhere near as much of a dick as you are.
That is correct. And in your universe, I'm the only one that gives you that shelter and cover.
Yes, that's true. Everyone else at TMO is much nicer than me.
No, I wouldn't say that, but there's certainly less grumpy pants than last year.
Listen, Apple just has me cranky of late.
I understand.
Although one of the things we're going to talk about that happened just today makes me substantially less angry at Apple.
I want to go out of order. Let's hop into that. The encouraging Mac signs. So we kind of it's a natural lead in from the Throttlegate. So let's get into the shit before we get into the sunshine.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's the Throttlegate response that actually is the thing.
Right. So Throttlegate. Why don't you wrote two really good articles about it. Why don't you give us the synopsis? I really liked your articles.
All right. So one article, we've been talking about it for a week, Throttlegate. We've been talking about it left and right. We've written lots of news stories. Apple's got all these lawsuits against it, and I've been making the case that Apple is going to lose all these lawsuits, whether or not they win in the courtroom. Whatever happens in the courtroom, Apple is losing. And the thing is this, we know.
Let me stop you there. Just you mean they're losing in the sense of like kind of their brand's taking a hit for this shit?
Yes.
Even if they don't lose the technical lawsuit, they lose kind of just as tarnishing their brand. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, tarnishing their brand, like in a self-inflicted. Like let's see if we can go for a new extended analogy. Apple has a nice silver version of its logo, and they went and then they found a big vat of Acme tarnish. And they took their Apple logo and then they dumped it into the big bucket of Acme tarnish, and then they swished it around, and then like sort of like hammered on their silver logo, and then they took a big dump on it, and they did this all themselves, and then they pulled it out of the vat of Acme tarnish.
You could have, of course, skipped the Acme tarnish and just talking about taking a dump right on there. That's really what they did. You eventually realize that this is Pop.0 and you didn't have to have the PC part there.
No, it's the Acme tarnish that works for me, because I mean, like poop doesn't necessarily tarnish. Anyway, the point is this: Apple has been slowing down phones with degraded batteries, and Apple has admitted this, and they didn't tell anybody about it. And it was a solution to the problem of when iPhones would shut down unexpectedly.
From the which has been happening for years, by the way. You could look back as early as 2013. phones would, in the cold in particular, just randomly shut down.
Yeah, but it's not even just in the cold.
Yeah,
like, if the battery degrades enough and you do something with your iPhone, or your iPhone decides to do something that is processor intensive enough, it would ask for power from the battery. The battery says, hey, look, dude, I just can't give you that much. And the iPhone would, out of its own protection, go, oh, okay, sorry, my bad, and shut down.
Well, yes. So actually, I wish it was that nice. So this is a good point to delve a little into the tech of this, right?
Okay.
This deals with peak battery output, and this is why the cold is a good proxy to what's happening when a battery is degraded, because in the cold or in the extreme heat, a battery gets degraded in different ways. In cold, it just can't put out the peak output. So like depending on how cold it is, peak output of the battery falls from 15 to 50% out. So if the CPU riles up on the phone because you're playing a video game or something like that, it asks to draw more juice, and there just simply is not enough juice. And what happens is the processor doesn't say, hey, I'm a little tired, I'm going to now gracefully shut down. What happens is it just spikes. It's like pulling the plug out from the wall on your iMac, right? There's just simply no juice. The processor has a hard crash. So it was the worst of all cases. Your phone is doing a hard crash because there isn't enough power draw. And so a similar thing happens. So we know that power output degrades in real heavy cold and in real high heat, but also power peak output degrades over time. Just like your batteries on your, you have to throw your batteries out on your smoke detectors and any other devices you have after a bunch of years, because the chemistry in them wears out, and on rechargeable batteries it wears out after X number of recharges, but the peak output of the battery goes down. And it's the same as if it was operating in the cold. All of a sudden, when the processor says, hey, I need max power draw, the battery's like, I can't do it, and it just will have a hard crash from not being able to provide the power draw. So Apple's in a bit of a conundrum. So either they could slow down the processor to prevent those peak asks when the battery is degraded, whether it's cold, heat, or just old age of the battery, or they could throttle the processor to make sure whatever the peak is, it's never above what the degraded battery can provide. Those are their options. Technically, those are basically the only two options they have. Now, PR,
and it's how they handled those options that actually going to come into play.
Exactly. The PR of this was them totally shitting the bed in how they handled this, which was they just didn't tell anybody.
Yeah, they were doing it. So what they decided to do was take the throttling the CPU angle so that iPhones wouldn't shut down when they had degraded batteries. And it's a clever solution, and it's actually probably a responsible solution. And as John said, what they didn't do was tell anybody. They just didn't tell anybody. And it was found because I think it was initially someone on Reddit was posting some data on older iPhones, and someone else ran through Geekbench data, I think it might have been Geekbench themselves, and found that, yeah, iPhones that had degraded batteries have been throttled since like last February.
And so the secretness of this is, the problem is it plays, and you covered this super well, I thought, on ACM, on the context machine, which is basically for anyone that's an Apple hater and a conspiracy theorist that they have planned obsolescence. This just gave them, vats and vats of rocket fuel to pour on their hate, their fire of hate, right? And just make that blow up and basically say, see, I told you so. Now, of course, that's total horseshit, and there's a bandwagon of people suing the fuck out of Apple, which is also a lot of bullshit, in that it's basically either driven by class action lawyers that are going to get a lot more money for their law firm than any wrongs are going to be righted by this, which is bullshit, because to your point, this does the opposite. It doesn't obsolete the phone. It lengthens the life of the phone for people that are not taking care of their battery, which Apple clearly says, once they're under 80% health of the battery, you should change the battery. And people aren't doing that, and then saying, well, why is my degraded battery driven phone not performing like the day it was the first brand new? It's kind of like asking, why is my car not performing the same way after years of use as it was when I first got it? It's a stupid, fundamentally moron argument, but that won't stop scumbag. Should I say that? Yeah, whatever. Scumbag lawyers. Know they're going to get a big payday and settlement, pretending that they're doing this for the consumer, which is a bunch of shit. They're doing this for themselves and in foreign governments that kind of hate America.
Okay, but whatever kind of settlement Apple ends up paying is irrelevant because it won't be that much relative to what Apple has. And what it does do is it feeds this myth. It feeds this because the myth that it's feeding is that Apple slows down old iPhones to make you want to upgrade. And it's just so that is so infuriating. And then you've got the
lawsuits. I disagree in this sense, because in some sense we're again agreeing right past one another vehemently. The lawsuits add more of that fuel. They lend.
Yeah, they do add they add to that fuel, right? And that's the part that's self-induced on Apple's part, because all Apple had to do was just tell us what they were doing.
Agreed. At the very least, just a statement, or in my opinion, the right thing to do from a consumer vantage was to have a dialog box that says, hey, your phone battery just went under 80% wear and tear, which means it's really degraded at this point. To prevent your phone from having hard crashes, from now on, you understand that your phone is going to be running at a reduced rate to extend the life of this phone. Otherwise, it's just going to have hard crashes, and have two buttons. I acknowledge this, or I acknowledge this and set up an appointment to do a battery replacement on my phone with Genius.
That'll work.
That's all I had to do.
And I have good news for you, because Apple's going to do something like that. We don't know the specifics yet, but Apple released a statement today, an open letter to customers apologizing for the way they handled it. They didn't apologize for throttling the phones, because again, throttling the phones was actually a very, very good thing for them to do to solve this particular problem. But they apologized for their lack of communication, and they said that starting in January, they're going to be offering $29 battery replacements for iPhone 6 and newer for anyone who wants one, and that's down from $79. And it's going to be available from sometime late January to through December of 2018. And they said that early in 2018, we will issue an iOS software update with new features that give users more visibility into the health of their iPhone's battery, so that they can see for themselves if its condition is affecting performance. So that's what they needed to do from the beginning.
So was it the replacement's going to cost $29 or $50? I forget.
It's a reduction of $50 to $29.
Holy shit, that's actually a pretty good deal.
Yeah.
So one, they took what, and the reason I mentioned the PR blunder is it's just this continued thread of bad business management decisions that have kind of gone on for 2-3 years plus. Like, this is a PR thing that should have been headed off, although it's easy to say in retrospect, but it really should have been, because I just don't believe any ill will on Apple's part on this. They don't
no. Well, if anything, it was arrogance. It was just like, we don't need to tell anybody. It was that typical Apple thing where we don't need to tell anybody what we're doing.
Yeah, maybe it was that. Maybe it was lack of care.
But it wasn't malicious.
Exactly. And look, you and I shit on Apple a prodigious amount on this show. I mean, me in particular, an amazing amount. So I just don't see it. This is overblown bullshit, making a mountain out of a molehill kind of thing. Apple has been doing the right thing with what they were doing technically on this phone. It is the right thing. Their messaging was shit, and the PR department shit the bed on this. That said, their PR statement that they released was actually pretty good. I mean, it's kind of closing the barn door and after the fire, but it was a nice close of the barn door. Darth Versio, hello. I disagree with your disagreement. Darth Versio says the dial locks wouldn't work because, let me just read it so I don't.
It's Verso, by the way, Darth Verso.
Who? Darth Verso?
Yeah. You said Versio. It's Verso.
Oh, Dark Verso. I apologize. Wouldn't work because users. That's a great reason then. Sure, it wouldn't work for all users. That's true, but that's not what we're talking about. Not everyone needs to be inside the tent, so to speak. I've done too much tech support for too long to believe that dialogue would make a difference. The dialogue would make a difference in at least two ways, Darth. It would have been better messaging and communication from a PR standpoint and legal notice, right?
Yeah.
Two, even if some small portion push the button that says I acknowledge and schedule a battery appointment replacement, that just makes it so freaking easy to, why am I saying freaking? It's fucking Pop.0. Anyway, it makes it so easy that at least some portion, I don't know if that's 10%, 5%, 30%, but some decent portion would take advantage of that, because it's just anytime you make stuff easier, some people will take advantage of it. But it won't be a panacea.
None of that. It's just the right thing to do. It doesn't matter if it goes over some people's heads. It doesn't matter if some people misunderstand it. It's just the right thing to do.
I agree. Oh, Kelly. Hi, Kelly. So and hi, Rick, as well. I agree. It's the right thing to do, and I think anyway. I think we've.
But they're gonna do it. So that's. I mean, better late than never. We'll see what happens with these lawsuits. The one there's a lawsuit in France that just makes my head explode.
Look, it's a bunch of people that think that here's the sum total of what these lawsuits. It's a bunch of people that hate on Apple for one reason or the other, and find this is a way to just extract a little bit of that money they feel that Apple doesn't deserve and put it in their pocket, which makes themselves feel better and try to fill the hole in their soul, because they really have nothing else useful to do. This is not one of these things that they're actually doing a consumer good, other than the person who did the consumer good was whoever posted that original article to let people know, because Apple shit the bed in its PR messaging where they should have let you know this. And that was the genuine good here. Apple technically is doing the right thing. The alternative is to let these phones just hard crash otherwise, which is clearly dumb, because people need to replace their battery if they want to continue using full peak force on.
So I've made this point on, I think it was on TDO. The only thing about this whole situation that could be possibly malicious is if Apple didn't tell us what it was doing because they wanted to avoid having to give cheaper battery. They wanted to avoid having to replace batteries that are under warranty and avoid that sort of thing. So like if they were just trying to save a few pennies on batteries, and I hope that's not the case. I don't have any evidence whatsoever that is the case, but there's a little bit of me that worries that it was a bean counter decision and not a policy position.
So anything is possible, right? Ancient aliens. That doesn't make it likely.
Isn't it possible that the people who were in Cupertino found out how to make an iPhone directly from ancient aliens? And the answer is yes. Of course it's possible.
That's actually a really good imitation, man. That's good. That's spot on. Good shit. You are our ancient aliens expert from now on. So yes, it's possible, but the real question is there a high degree of plausibility? Apple can't wipe its own ass at this point. It's so fucking mismanaged on a bunch of things that the notion that this is that some penny pincher went up to Cook and said this is what we're going to do is just, to me, a fucking laughable thing.
No, I don't think this ever reached Tim. I don't even know that it reached Craig.
Right.
I think that the whole thing just happened because it was allowed not to reach the top. But of course, John, how do we balance this with our whole notion of like empowering people to do stuff?
Well, this goes. I think there is. Stay with me for a second.
You see what I'm saying, though?
This plays to our argument that people are not empowered, right? You're assuming this guilt already has happened and is a done deal. My point is that no one thought of this. No one thought about the messaging issue. I'm sure if someone in PR did their job and said, well, to be fair to the PR people may have not been aware of this technical issue, right? If no one communicates to PR that we're doing this, PR can't act on it. So maybe I'm shitting on PR too quickly. the technical people that solve this didn't communicate potentially with the PR people, and for all we know, the fucking management didn't even know about it. But the point is that the PR people didn't go and say, hey, maybe we should do this to management, and management had a say in it. I think it's one of those things that nobody gave a shit about and thought about. And there isn't that kind of role that we said in I don't know, 2 or 3 episodes ago, where we said there's this quality assurance security person that goes and thinks about these things and is involved on this on a high level, and to bring kind of issues like this to the fore that are important for people to make some decision about. I don't think it got it. I think it goes to our previous point where these ADD toddlers that run Apple, to get their focus and attention on something is very difficult, and I don't think this ever got there. That was below their station, so to speak, to pay attention to this, and now it's blown up in their face because maybe someone should have mentioned it to them. So I think that's how I reconcile it. It's part of the problem that there is not a structure there to bring up the things that should be paid attention to, and let the toddler otherwise play with new color wrist straps, advances.
So listen, since we have Kelly in the room, how much did your head explode when she started praising the Apple's focus on wrist straps?
I love
that would have been today's TDO.
First of all, I'm a huge fan of Kelly. I love reading Kelly's articles, and like listening to her. And I think she's one of the few truly very insightful people that has original thoughts. Like, I listen to a lot of podcasts that Kelly's on, and there's a lot of groupthink that goes on them. And sometimes I think Kelly is very nice, and she'll go with positive groupthink. But when she does her own kind of analysis, and she brings it to before the group starts thinking collectively, she's really advanced arguments that I haven't seen other people advance. So I'm a super big fan of Kelly. The fact my brain literally turned off as soon as she talked about, like, as I was laughing.
I know it's the Kelly. What? And by the way, at this point now, we're going to have Kelly on the show.
Yeah, she said, maybe you'll invite me on the show. Kelly, by all means, if you would like to keep our degenerate company, we would be more than, I can't speak for Bryan, because I know secretly he hates you and is jealous of you. But
so
I would be more than thrilled to have you on the show, and for us to check.
Yeah. So anyway, what Kelly doesn't know, since we'll finish this Kelly section of this particular episode here shortly, but what she doesn't know is just how often John rants and fumes and just froths at the mouth about wrist straps. And I was thinking about John when Kelly was saying that on TDO this week.
Yeah, because the most important thing that they have not skimped on and regularly iterated and update are new wrist strap color innovations. Like this year, Kelly, thank God, yellow and orange. Motherfucking yellow and orange. They did it. They threw the fucking mic down. Yellow and orange, bitches. We got yellow and orange. Finally.
All right. So listen, back on track here. Apple released this open letter. They're going to do what is the right thing to do. They're going to inform users through the operating system. That's great. They're giving everybody a discount because they've got a big mea culpa foot shoved in their mouth. And these lawsuits will probably still continue, and Apple is still going to take some heat, and we're going to be hearing for years now. We're going to be running into people who talk about, like, everybody knows that Apple slows down old iPhones.
Well, it's a bit of PR in a bit like what happened to Apple Maps. Like, it's one of those instances where the old axiom is true. You only have one chance to make your first impression, right? And then you're forever burdened and saddled with that, which the usual PR answer is to launch it under a new title and say under new management, right? And then now all sins are forgiven because this is the new Apple Maps.
It's true.
Maps or whatever, which they didn't do. But anyway, so in that sense, you're right. This gives fuel for that fire for forever. It was mishandled, whether by maybe Apple's PR department does, again, if no one ever informed them of this, it's hard for them to anticipate this, but somewhere this was dropped. And maybe I'm being a little mean. Well, that's usually That's usually a safe bet.
Yeah, it's usually a safe bet, dude. You keep
maybe I'm being. What do you think? Am I being unfair and criticize? It's easy to criticize Apple's PR after the fact that they not PR proper, but I'm just all of Apple for not anticipating this because, you know, to their minds maybe they just thought it was no big deal. But I think this one, considering how much hate and people talk about planned obsolescence about Apple for years, this one was somewhat foreseeable.
Yeah, but again, we just don't know how high up it went. I mean, I think unless there be any confusion, there is no doubt to me that Tim Cook had a direct hand in writing this letter. It's got his vocal rhythms all over it. I mean, upper management was involved in this apology. What we don't know is how far up the chain the original decision went. Yeah,
I'm gonna go with my steadfast. They didn't give a shit, so nowhere. And they just lack of care, which describes a lot of their performance and behavior over the last few years. But fair point. Have we beaten that horse?
Yep, I think so. Let's move on.
Okay, topic number 2, which is encouraging Mac signs, and I think a natural segue because that PR press release they did, and I usually don't give a shit because they're usually, what's that? You had that really good phrase like marketing bullshit vetted by bullshit lawyers to say nothing. I'm paraphrasing liberally here, but it was in one of the articles. Is, you know, PR speak is generally kind of horse shit like that nobody cares about. It's just checking a box that you know only lawyers care about and human beings don't. But this statement actually was decently done. It was like, hey, please understand us. This is how batteries fucking work. You know, so I think they did a decent job there.
Yep.
So I have to give you credit, and since I crow so much for when I am right, you have been wrong. I have to say that in our bet of whether or not things are improving at Apple, whether or not they care more, whether there are positive signs in the Mac part of the Apple ecosystem, I was at best, we'll say, suspect of a
yeah. And I understand. I understand that suspicion.
And you have been more positive, which to
kind of what I do.
Kelly, well, to Kelly and others, you know, that's a statement of relativism to the extreme. Because
I am willfully optimistic. I don't think the glass is half full. I plan on it being half full.
Well, you were commenting that others on other podcasts were more optimistic than you in the last few
That's true. That's true. Sometimes.
So, like,
actually, I think I said nice. Whatever. We're digressing.
A statement in relativism. So, but you were more sanguine that there are some signs because they did some updates of the MacBook so quickly. Although the MacBook is a big piece of shit because everything is soldered in. The fact that it uses the word Pro is an insult to any.
You're talking about the MacBook Pro, not the MacBook.
Yes, I'm sorry. The MacBook Pro is an insult to anyone that is an actual Pro. They should call it the MacBook Edition for the execs that don't mind, you know, overpaying for soldered in shit. But so I didn't see any evidence of improvement there. But we have our first, I think, really empirical evidence of at least one instance of things going in a positive direction with the iMac Pro. We already knew from one of our last podcasts that the iMac Pro, at least the RAM was upgradable, and it's on DIMMs. But we recently found out, I'll say 1.5 new positive things. One, that the SSD is at least theoretically upgradable because it's slotted.
Yep.
I don't know what protocol they're using, if they're using PCIe or some NV, whatever, RME or what, some new clusterfuck standard, who knows what it is. And also who knows what the software is, since it seems to be RAID zeroed, and how that RAID zeroed is accomplished, who knows. But at least it's a slot, so there's the potential for upgrading it. The two SSD slots, actually, in some ways it's kind of pretty cool because
Rick is saying it's NVMe.
NVMe. Thanks Rick. But it's upgradable, and it seems that the processor may be socketed, which means the processor potentially is upgradable.
Yeah, thank goodness that the damn thing is sealed.
And that's why I said 1.5. So I'll give a quarter to the potential processor socketing.
Yeah.
Actually hear that that's the real deal, and that
It's actually pretty cool if it's true.
Oh,
and I'm surprised.
The processor when they ripped it from the from the glue. So who knows how that actually ripped out? We will learn. But let's assume that's the case. But it's an improvement on the case. I know you said you're hating on the case, and you know it'd be great if they had a 1 or 2 or 3 or 4, whatever number of doors is required to actually update the RAM and the SSDs, because that's all pros. Not all pros, but I think pros always need a variable amount of storage, and on machines that are expensive, a variable amount of RAM. On a laptop, maxing the RAM is maybe only $200 or $300 more, which is a relative to the overall cost of the laptop, not as significant. But when you're talking about on an iMac spending $2,500 more to max out the RAM, not to mention next year that same machine might be able to go 256 gigs of RAM because the density of the chips will improve.
Well, and the 128 would cost $500 instead of $2,500.
Right. Instead of $2,500, it becomes unreasonable not to have it socketed. But you always need.
But it is socketed, so that's great. But it's not doored, and that is still, it still annoys me.
Right, and so the fact that they don't have the doors is negative. There's no way. You and I are on the same page there. False to them that they could have a few doors. However, it is also and I'm giving you credit for this. That this is you have to say empirically it's a positive sign, because I believe the 2015-ish versions of the iMac are particularly shit to open because they use glue.
I don't think the 2015 does.
Maybe one of the years did. Maybe it was
one of them did.
Maybe it was 2014. They use glue, which is just fuck all. Like, because now when you're prying the glue, you got a heat gun in it, and if you don't get all the parts, things will literally rip and tear, which you shouldn't do to circuit boards in general.
Generally speaking, yeah.
So here they're only using tape, so you just have to slice the tape around. Now,
dude, who is the beaten housewife now, man?
Dude, I am. Yes, this is Stockholm syndrome. Dude, I'm trying to give you credit. Shut the fuck up and take the fucking credit.
Well, let's get to the thing that actually
tape is an improvement over glue. You can cut tape easily.
Okay.
Capiche?
Great. Say hello to Miss Patty Hertz for me.
Right. So yeah, no. In the sense, of course, I think we vehemently agree that putting in a couple, or even if it's 4 fucking doors, just put in 4 fucking doors. And this notion that you need 4 doors, they could have moved. The argument is, oh well, one SSD is on one side of the stand and one's on the other, and the RAM, 2 of them are on one side. I'm like, okay,
just put however many doors you need.
I'm happy Apple wanted to have a symmetrical, lovely looking motherboard with fluttery wings. But fuck them, they could have moved all that shit into one area and had 1 door. For starters, let's start there.
Yeah, it doesn't. There's nothing saying that the iMac Pro has to be that thin. They redesigned the back of the case in the first place. They could have designed it to be a little bit bigger so that they could bloody well afford to put the goddamn components where they need to go, so they can fucking put a door in there so they can fucking open it and we can fucking put it our show and fucking fit it. So, but that's still not the thing that is really encouraging. So
to me, that there is the potential for upgrade and the potential for at least sophisticated users to get in there and to do an upgrade is a positive increment forward, even though it's a Stockholm syndrome one. So that is an empirical sign that things are kind of hopefully going in an improvement. But I'll let you get to what you were leading on to, which was the security thing, which was of improvement. Go ahead.
Right. So today we found out that there is a startup security utility. It's basically what you could do with the iMac Pro, and this has a hardware component in it. But what you can do with the iMac Pro is you can control which startup drives it can launch from and require a password to change that. And you can also limit it to only booting up from signed versions of the operating system from Apple. And you can completely prohibit it from starting up from any external storage.
And one more thing, that utility makes sure that the boot happens on a hardware encrypt. The drives are hardware encrypted. There's a special a chip on there that helps with the encryption to be super fast. Now we find out it's not only encryption on the fly, it's encryption on the fly to 2 channels of SSD rated.
Right.
Pretty fast shit. So 3 gigabytes per second is, with hardware acceleration, is pretty top of the line shit. I only know of a few SSDs that are faster, that are still on my 2010 Mac Pro, that hit about near 6 gigs per second, but there's no way they're doing that with on-the-fly encryption. They're going to go down significantly. So this is pretty state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line shit here.
And that's still not why we're excited about it.
Go ahead, finish your thesis.
Well, the reason why we're excited about it is that this could be yet another sign that Apple actually gives a shit about the Mac, because they had actual programmers make this happen. They paid people to make this software and paid engineers to put the physical components into the iMac Pro. They put resources into this really cool security feature.
So let me...
That's so exciting.
I'm going to let you have your second. And 1/100. Let me show you metaphorically what I'm doing with my asshole in preparation to what I'm going to say now, which is to shit all over that. One thing that we know quite well that Apple is capable of doing is making a lot of new pretty princess apps.
Yeah.
Software.
And then blowing them off.
And then fucking ignoring them into submission, basically. Forever. So,
boot camp, anybody?
Yeah. So that they made
it. Boot camp is an absolutely analogous example.
Dude, so is all of iWorks and fucking.
No, but boot camp is all right. Anyway.
Yeah. All right.
Boot camp is the same kind of thing as this utility.
Yeah, we're vehemently agreeing past one another.
Yes, we are, as we are prone to do.
Exactly. So maybe so, but what I think is empirical and doesn't go shows progress is this hardware being somewhat more upgradable potentially, even though it is from our Stockholm syndrome kind of vantage here of constant abuse by Apple. So let's hope 2018 could be such a killer year for Apple. So think about this. Look what if you're if you're an investor, do not take advice from these 2 idiots.
Yeah. Oh yeah, for sure.
I count myself twice. I'm not going to speak on your part, because I'm at least don't take advice from us. But look at what without doing shit, Apple should be making crazy bank, right? So iPhone 10, despite whatever horseshit you're hearing about, volumes going down, whatever, it's bunch of bullshit. They're going to make killer sales on the iPhone 10 and the 8s. It's going to be a killer year over year. It's going to be a significant bump all the way through until September.
Yep.
So
I agree with that.
It's a killer year already. Come September, look what the release is. They're going to release a large iPhone X or 10 or whatever, meaning a plus version, because it does piss me off that this doesn't have landscape mode, like a real big boy, big girl toy should, with a screen this large. It should have landscape mode. So the iPhone 10 or 11 Plus is going to come out. That's going to drive a lot of volume because it's going to be like a 6.5-inch display, which is ridiculous. It's basically like a mini iPad at that point.
Yep.
So that's going to goose sales. There's going to be a small, there's going to be this size phone, kind of a regular, whatever, I guess iPhone 11 size, and there's going to be a small size phone, a new updated SE, potentially, and they're going to have potentially a medium and a large size kind of iPhone 8 replacement with the button. That's a lot of phones.
I think they're not going to go away in the next.
You think?
Yeah, I think.
Well, they still may sell the 8 as the kind of old version. You know what I mean? Kind of like they sell the 6S this year. Still.
Yeah, the 8 will still be on the market, and the 8 Plus will still be on the market. But I think that the 9 or the 8S, 8S Plus, I think that'll be about most surely.
Anyway, all of a sudden, if we look back several years ago, when we only had the iPhone 5, everyone's like, there's one iPhone, right? You're going to be one iPhone. Now you have kind of a huge lineup, which just means there's going to be a shit ton more sales. That means come September, for at least another 3 to 4 quarters after that, sales are going to be high if they don't do anything, unless they fuck something up like catastrophically. It means for the next almost like year and 3 quarters, if they do just that, it's going to be a killer year revenue-wise. Now, maybe these assholes will actually ship a motherfucking Mac Pro this year. God knows. There's certainly no guarantee on it. If they do that and ship the HomePod and Apple Watches are going out, and this is another key. The processors, which we talked about last episode, the new was it Coffee Lake processors, finally it's the first major upgrade in my opinion to laptop processors in like 2010 or 11. They'll go from 4 to 6 cores, so all of a sudden you have a pretty substantial reason to upgrade the laptops as well. Holy shit, it's like the next 2 years could be like the greatest sales ever. And if they actually pay attention to the Mac and update the Pro and the laptops accordingly, and if they could get a 12-inch.
Imagine if they came out with a new Mac Mini too.
Oh, holy fuck. It would, how about a Xeon-based Mac Mini?
Oh my goodness.
People would,
that could be the one weird trick for goosing Mac Mini sales. Releasing a new one.
Yeah. It's funny. We're always surprised. Oh, the sales went up, even on this piece of shit 2016, 2017 MacBook Pro, which is probably the politically correct thing to say is, what was it? Polarizing, and the right thing to say is shittiest MacBook Pros ever.
Listen, all I care about is that because I wasn't in the market for one, all I care about is that they were updated twice in 9 months.
That is a good.
That's exciting. Yeah, but the next version of the MacBook Pro is going to be amazeballs.
Yeah, there's a lot of potentially interesting things to your point on the Mac Mini. If they just release 4 core versions of the regular kind of Intel chips on that'll be a huge update, and they totally could do a Xeon based version, because there's a HP version kind of the Mac Mini that is Xeon based, and people use like for stacking server work if you want to do like large renderings or whatever in 3D and video production, stuff like that people use. So could be a fantastic year. So it is, I have to agree, encouraging sign.
It's encouraging sign. Yeah.
So you were right.
Well, how about there is more evidence suggesting that I may turn out to be correct? I don't think we can say that I'm right yet.
Well, in the sense that before we saw this, say 3 weeks ago, there was your assertion was still there, and here was something that.
Yeah, but we don't know if my assertion is correct. You're more in agreement that the assertion may prove to be correct. It hasn't yet to be proved, and this is mostly pedantic.
This is very pedantic, because the point is that this is one of those things that's never provable, because how long is the threshold of them turning over to their new leaf? You know what I mean? Like that could be 100-year thing where they have an instance later on and they failed. Did that disprove your assertion?
Oh, that's a good question. How long does Apple need to not suck at the Mac
to show that there's a turnaround?
To show that they actually care about the Mac. Yeah, that's a good. Oh my God, that's such a good question.
I think we could agree that if they did 3 regular updates line in a row, that means Mac Mini, 3 of them, MacBook Pro, MacBook, iMac and iMac Pro, and Mac Pro. We've got 3 of those in a row. We could say they've turned a leaf.
Like one every,
and suck after that, but that would be turning a leaf.
One every 9 to 12 months.
I'm a little, sadly or weirdly, I'm a little more lax than you on this. In that, yeah, once a year is fine. Once a year.
I like to see. I like that 9-month schedule. For years we had that 9-month schedule. That's part of the problem, is that Apple set that bar for a long time. It was every 9 months you get a new Mac, new Mac Pro, new iMac.
I will not be upset if they do it every 9 months. So, from your lips to someone's ears. And yes, Rick, the Z3 Mini is the one I meant. Thank you for that. Okay, moving on to, unless you have something else to crap.
No, let's find something else to bitch about.
Okay, so HomePod and the holidays.
Well, so one of the things that you and I haven't talked about the HomePod much. You and I. I've talked about the HomePod with Jeff. I've talked about the HomePod on TDO. But you and I have not talked about the HomePod a whole lot.
And this ties in a little bit with Darth's question. I'll go back to Darth. She asked, Johnny's back at the helm of design, and how's that sit with me? So Kelly, I've long since said that, and by the way, I was proven right on this, that Johnny looked tired as fuck after a couple years post Steve Jobs's death, and he got fat, which I say knowing full well I'm throwing stones through my glass house, and he looked tired as fuck, and he was carrying a very heavy load, in my opinion, for quite a long while in helping Apple survive that pretty traumatic shock to its system in losing Steve. And I thought he was going away on sabbatical. And when they said, "Oh, he's not going away," and I think Bryan kind of parroted that. To be pedantic, Bryan probably said there's no evidence of that, which was true because the statements just said that he's got new, bigger responsibilities. I said he's going away on sabbatical, and he deserved. And I have no animosity towards him, because if any guy deserved a break, it was fucking Johnny. I mean, that guy towed a lot of weight and took on a lot of responsibility to ensure that Apple transitioned and as well as could be. So I think he deserved his time off. And if during his time off he got to play with pretty doorknobs at Apple campus and that was his heart's delight, more power to him. I don't give a shit what he did. Did he fucking put up Christmas trees and stupid stores and shit? Whatever it was, he deserved his break. So I'm glad he got his break. And I don't know, how fast he gets integrated where you start seeing his design decisions start to affect things. I don't know how much apart he
seems like it would take a full year for that to really.
You would think, and I'm sure he had at least lightly some interaction with the design team. I doubt
he had to have.
I doubt he was completely unplugged, but I don't know how long it takes him to integrate with that, and I don't know, did maybe the delay in the HomePod have something to do with his return and him wanting to?
I hope not, because there's a different reason that I hope there's a different reason for the delay in the HomePod.
Well, it might be the same reason that Johnny, if he did have a hand in delaying it, would want to. Johnny may have also said, "Hey, it's nice that this is a good stereo, but I also like it to work like a fucking decent Siri thing." Right, which is
that's true. That's a good point. He may, he may well have. Yeah. Let's hope. Oh my God, I hope let's hope that Johnny threw his weight behind that.
So obviously,
this is a really beautiful device, and it sounds amazing. But what I really fucking want is a goddamn Siri device in my home.
I agree. Trying to wing this back to the HomePod. I think it sucks that they missed this date, and you see all kinds of articles out right now about what a killer year Amazon had in selling its Echoes and whatnot, and probably Google as well. I would think is the next big beneficiary, and Apple's gone. And this is for you youngins like you Kelly. You probably were a kid at the time, but during the .com era, it was, I think, I'm trying to remember what year it was. It was like 1998 or so. It was considered to be the first e-Christmas, when kind of enough people got online and commerce started to happen. And Amazon had a lawsuit with Barnes and Nobles, and they won this patent preliminary injunction that they ultimately lost on the permanent injunction, but it didn't matter because it saved the company, where they said, this is the first e-Christmas. And if we miss this e-Christmas and you let these guys rip us off, we're totally going to die. And if we make this e-Christmas, it's going to totally make our company. And in some sense that panned out, right? Like now they are the 800-pound gorilla and that was a Christmas that really launched them. And you wonder, is it a similar time with regard to these home assistant devices, that this was the Christmas to get, because it's not clear how easy people will switch from one ecosystem to the other once they install stuff. Jeff Gamet might be an interesting person to ask, because I think he switches, but he might be a bad person.
He switches because of it's our job to try things out.
Right, which was what I was about to say. That might be a bad reason to say, because he's not a typical user either. And your typical user might just be married to this for the long haul. And Apple made this a significant portion of the market.
I think that if a device can be compelling enough, people will switch for it. Right? It's not that everybody who buys into Google Home is going to be forever married to Google Home, but it's the longer they're in any given ecosystem, be it Apple's ecosystem, be it the Alexa ecosystem or Google Home ecosystem, the longer they're in that ecosystem, the more dramatic change it will require to get them to consider anything else. So
it's an interesting thesis. I don't know if I'm completely swayed by it, because I think some ecosystems are more sticky and flypaper-like than others. The Apple ecosystem, for a good part of its demographic, is pretty sticky. I think I have a lot of buddies that have Android phones, and they're you would say almost agnostic. They could flip-flop from one year to the other. They just don't care. Because, and the reason is, there really is no ecosystem in Android. Android people tend to never buy anything. Like, they'll never spend $1 on an app. I know I'm way overgeneralizing. There are obviously people that buy apps on Android, but a large part of its demographic doesn't want to. A large part of its demographic doesn't tie into, well, there isn't even a coherent set of apps. Like, you get 4 different email apps on stuff. So those people are very kind of almost Jeff-like user, to Kelly's point, that's saying that Jeff's, he uses both. He's not the typical user, is I think the gist of what she was trying to say. And I agree, but not a lot of the people in that ecosystem are easily movable. Not a lot of the people in the Mac system are as easily, not as much of a portion is as easily movable. The question is, how easy is it to yank the cord on an Alexa? If you set up a home automation system based on it, yeah, I think that becomes tough. If you use it to order more Tide every once in a while, I don't think you give a fuck.
Yeah, okay. All right. I'm not going to argue with you too much on that.
So I don't know what it means, but it's certainly some missed opportunity. But to your point, if it gets me I will be highly disappointed if the HomePod is all speakers and only ostensibly Siri. I need it to be, I'm sure it's going to be shit compared to, say, Google and Alexa. And a lot of those are way more mature products, and frankly, they do something crazy. They iterate their products. So Apple probably would just abandon this like 3 days after they release it. But nonetheless, if at least can do the same type of shit that my phone can do, schedule an appointment and do some menial home automation launching stuff, that'll be a good enough diploma start to get this going. So hopefully they make it at least that remedial. But if my expectations now are so low, I'm such a Stockholm syndrome thing on this too. Like I don't know. It's shocking to me that they could release this and think, yeah, we could just pay short thrift to
Shrift. Well, the thing though is, I don't think was the decision. I think the decision was, we can go after the Sonos market, and the Sonos market will make our ecosystem stickier for those who were interested in it. I don't think it was we don't need to mess with Siri. I think it's more like our target here is the music. And Sonos is proving, because Sonos is doing a thriving business in being a Sonos.
If that were true, now maybe I'm misremembering this, but I remember they have a real interesting array of speakers, and they're using the A8 chip to kind of optimize the beaming and whatnot.
You're talking with the HomePod.
The HomePod.
Yeah.
But they also had an array of microphones.
Yes.
If all you cared about was the Sonos market, why would you build in an array of microphones?
So that you can control it even over loud music. So that Siri can hear you and understand you. And also the microphones are used for part of the beamforming too.
Well, that later part was I think.
But I mean, one of the really genius things that the HomePod can do is that it can be blaring music, and you can whisper. I'm going to turn my iPhone over. Hey Siri, switch to this other band, and it will hear you even over the loud music. So that then the microphones are both that, and then also the beamforming and the tuning itself to a room.
Yeah, that's a good point. So I guess we'll see. I'm hopeful that it will not suck as much as I'm fearing it may suck. And the other thing, by the way, we discussed, remember how you and Jeff set up a proxy for, will the new iMac Pro keyboard come with
Yes. With the touch bar, and it did not. So the touch bar is dead.
The touch bar is dead, and you may well be right. We also had a proxy on how committed they are to the Mac. Will the speakers work just like regular speakers for your Mac? I'll play the boing or your YouTube video out of it, right? Like a USB speaker would. Or will it only be there for music play via app of some kind? Tells you how much, it was somewhat, at least to me, a proxy of how much they give a fuck about the Mac.
Well, okay, let me yeah, fair enough. When it comes to HomePod, though, what could have been the delay? So possible reasons are manufacturing problems. Doesn't seem likely. Another problem would be a problem with a particular component. Doesn't seem likely.
Software.
It's got to be software, right?
The fact that they barely let anyone breathe or fart near this thing tells you that software wasn't even alpha level. It was like,
okay, so is it just a matter of what they wanted to do wasn't ready, or was it a matter of them realizing that something needed to change?
That I don't know. It could be.
Yeah, we don't know.
It could be either or both. Who knows? That I don't have access to that part of the sausage making at Apple. My few friends that still work there, the only parts that I do know of is the total abandonment of iTunes. There's just one dude. There's one dude dealing with it. It's fucking pathetic. I don't know what's going on that, because that project has sunshine on it, right? So that means Apple is fucking throwing out the bills all over that team to get what's going on. So they have what they probably need resources wise. I don't know if it's a change.
I hope it's the latter. I hope it's that they realized it needs to do more. I hope.
Yeah.
Even better if they realized that they needed to have a dot component.
Yeah,
it's the only device.
I'm going to get two of these as soon as they come out, just because my Kheit speakers died recently, which is annoying. And so I really need the speakers, but I'm hoping they also work as a Mac thing. But we'll see. I'm hoping it works well as an assistant. But Apple, here's the greater thing. Siri itself sucks. Like the current state of Siri on whatever you consider to be the best device for Siri, whether it's the iPhone or the iPad, it kind of sucks.
It's not where it needs to be.
All my friends that use Android and talk about how great Google Home is, Google Now is, right? They're absolutely right. It does a lot of great stuff. And Apple has only had small flourishes to address that. The famous, we don't need to see your photos of mountains and lakes to teach Siri about mountains and lakes. True.
Right.
Good. But I need you to fucking take care of my appointments and where I need to be and stuff.
Yeah.
That Google Now. So
I need you to tell me when my example for this, John, and I mentioned this before. I know you've heard it, but I'll mention it again. I've got on the one hand, my buddy pointing out to me that he had searched for a band on Google 6 months ago, and Google Now just told him that band was going to be in San Francisco next week or 2 weeks from now. And, and here's where you can buy tickets. That's useful. And then Tim Cook saying very specifically that I think it was that iTunes or Apple Music doesn't need to know what news you're reading. So yeah, it does. It does. It does. It does. It does.
And clearly we're okay with it because first of all, Contacts reads my mail to suggest a contact, right? So this is one of those, in my opinion, Tim Cook being full of shit like Steve Jobs, but in much more demure ways that you're overlooking with regard to the toaster fridge and other stuff. Any company that produces a motherfucking program called iTunes that lets you buy movies and is the only way for you to manage photo albums on your iPhone has the fucking gall to bring up a toaster fridge as a laugh on other people's products is a fucking pinnacle of unbelievable mountain-sized piles of shit hypocrisy.
Knowing you, how is it that you don't actually admire Tim Cook for that sort of a level of audacity?
I like that level of audacity. I'm particularly against it because you will not submit to my superior arguments, and until I bring you to your knees and you say, yes, you were right, and I was arguing with you just because out of spite because it's you.
No. The toaster fridge, I was not buying the toaster fridge for a long time. I buy the toaster fridge now. I've been exposed to enough information and enough people who make the argument, the pro toaster fridge argument.
You know, it was all me. You
know,
know,
it was not all you.
You just don't want. Well,
it was not all you. Matter of fact, there was a very specific someone that had a lot more to do with it than you did, sir.
Mm-hmm. That's what you said.
Mm-hmm.
Very cool. I see. Mm-hmm.
So, bottom line, mistake or not?
I was right.
Bottom line is, was it a mistake or was it not a mistake for Apple to miss this holiday season for HomePod?
Well, that's obvious with what little knowledge we have, which is, of course, all things being equal, you should release the products on time or as early as possible. So in that sense, it's a mistake. It's not a mistake if it would have ended up being a disaster shit show like the first.
Listen, okay, if the delay results in the product that was shown being shipped, I'm gonna be mad. If the delay results in a better product than what we were shown, giddy up. I'm gonna get one either way.
Yeah, it's hard to disagree with that. So I agree. Hey, by the way, you watched Doctor Who? Did you see the last special?
I'm way behind.
Okay.
Oh, maybe I'm not behind. Maybe just the Christmas special, but I haven't seen it yet.
Well, the Christmas special is also, as I think is somewhat tradition, is also the handoff from one doctor to the other doctor.
Right.
It was a nice special, but we promised lights and Christmassy lights for those that celebrate it. I hope you all had a Merry Christmas, and if you didn't,
that's lovely, John. That's very lovely.
I hope you had a nice after Christmas. And for those that don't celebrate Christmas, I hope you had a great Hanukkah or Kwanzaa or whatever it is that you celebrate, or Festivus for the rest of us, and enjoy that. And everyone that when we see you guys in the new year, we'll have a great year. But there's our pretty lights.
That's true. This is our last show of 2017.
Dude, we've been doing this for like 7 months. Isn't that weird?
It is weird.
We bullshit so much it doesn't seem that long.
Like I would say that doing the show with you is definitely one of the few lovely things that came out of 2017.
Well, thank you. I agree with a lot of that. I always enjoy talking to you, even when we disagree vehemently. Anyway, to all three of our listeners, I hope you guys had a great, as good a year as was possible, and that the next year brings huge improvements over the previous year. And
make sure you hit the subscribe button.
To you. So
hit the subscribe button on the YouTubes.
Oh yeah. You're always worried about
if you're listening to us after the fact, once we're finally on iTunes, hit the subscribe button there too.
Dude, we are never getting on iTunes. That involves energy and non-sloth that either of us are not in possession of.
It's gonna happen.
This is the uncola. This is the unpodcast videocast thing.
It's gonna happen. Anyway, Happy New Year, everybody. Thank you very much. Hit that button.
And on that popular topic, we'll talk to you next year.